Language as the maker of reality. Language for insight, for knowledge, for wisdom. Language for healing. And language to create a new material reality. These are the topics that we are going to discuss in this tape series. And then, having understood the mechanics of how language creates material reality, we're going to make practical use of this knowledge through sacred verses and healing sounds. But first, let us understand how language is in fact the force of information and energy that creates something out of nothing. In order to do this, let us go over some basic principles. Our essential state as human beings is that we are unconditioned spirit. The spirit is who we really are. And the spirit is the most powerful creative aspect of our life. It is a real force. It is the force as real as time or gravity. It is equally abstract. It is equally incomprehensible. It is equally mysterious, but it is much more powerful. The most creative aspect of our life is the spirit, and spirit in simple terms is awareness. It is the level of the field of creation. It is the choice maker inside you and me. It is the thought generator. It is the potentiality for energy and information. It is creative potential. It is infinite flexibility. It is the infinite choice maker. It's very powerful because it has the potential to generate infinite combinations of space-time events that have never occurred before, that have never existed before. As this awareness, which is our essential state, interacts with its own self, it creates certain mental patterns, and thus out of the spirit emerges the mind. These mental patterns are our conditioned responses that we grow up with. Psychologists estimate that the verbal cues fed to us by our parents, by society, by advertising, by media, that create the initial mental patterns which restrict our choices, just the verbal cues fed to us by our parents and society that run inside our heads like muffled tape loops amount to 25,000 hours of pure conditioning. And thus the spirit becomes the mind, where choices become restricted, where we create the illusion of non-choice. And thus are born our attitudes, our beliefs, our behavioral patterns to situations, to people, to things, to circumstances. And these attitudes, these beliefs, these behavioral patterns then lead to all events in our life. And where does language fit in? The role of language is that it shapes our beliefs, our attitudes, and our behavioral responses. Even though consciousness or awareness is the maker of reality, the making of reality is through language. What is language? Language is the means through which consciousness, which is all possibilities, creates patterns of intelligence that are conceived and then constructed into matter. Language constitutes the building blocks of material physical reality. We think of language as a purely human trait, and that is because we experience it verbally. We experience it as linguistically structured, verbally elite. But at pre-verbal levels, language is information and energy, and all of nature is alive with language. Consciousness is the potentiality for information and energy, and therefore for language. Language itself is the impulse of energy and information. In human awareness, it is experienced as words and images. In other forms of life, it may not be so sophisticated in its expression. It may remain pre-verbal as sound and information, as vibration and energy. Our thoughts, which are likewise quantum space-time events, impulses of information and energy, are also sound and information, vibration and memory. The book of Genesis says, "And God said, 'Let there be light.'" The word spoken by God was the word light. This word light, as well as the English word loud and the Greek word logos, have their primal origin in the root leg, which means sound and word. Countless words originate from this primordial sound. Lux, which in Latin means light. In English, the word light. Logos. Lichni in Greek for lamp. Lex in Latin for law. Language. Legion in Greek, to gather, to call, to talk, to read, to count. Even the word religion comes from the same root sound. The same word is likhot in Gothic, likhusa amongst the Indians in Peru, lak in Melanesia, lang in Micronesia, langit amongst the Khmer of Cambodia, lucidus in Latin, which created the word lucid in English, which means clarity. Rasit in Sanskrit, Ra in ancient Egypt, La'atu in Assyria, Larangai in the Aboriginal language of Australia, Lagat in Cornish Celtic. All these words relate to the eye of truth, to light, to knowledge, lightning, heaven, sky, fire, knowledge. All primordial words having the same origin.